All right, we've got Congressman Chip Roy in the mix now, and I believe he's on the ground in Iowa, or has been recently. Congressman Roy, appreciate you being here with us.
Great to be on. Yeah, I'm in Ames, Iowa. Just a hop, skip, and a jump from Iowa State. Just did an event with Governor DeSantis and Governor Kim Reynolds, and great to be here with the great folks of Iowa.
Now, you have openly endorsed Governor DeSantis, as has Governor Kim Reynolds. A lot of people are looking at the polls right now and they're saying, oh, it just feels like too much of a gap. What is your response to that in terms of this primary, where Trump is, where DeSantis is, the rest of the competition? For the DeSantis listeners in this audience, or I should say the DeSantis supporters in this audience, what's your case to them that this thing isn't over yet?
Yeah, well, first of all, spending some time here in Iowa, you get a sense of how important it is to them and how the extent to which all the roads getting to the White House lead through Iowa. It's a real thing. I mean, these people show up, they're informed, they're engaged. Some are decided, some are undecided, and they're asking great questions. We do not coronate people in this country, right? We do not anoint people. It doesn't matter if you were previously the president or if you're a new candidate, whatever. You don't just get to just waltz out and say, yep, I'm the president. You go through the process. The only vote that's going to matter in Iowa is the one on January 15th. Look, I don't think the University of Texas was ranked fourth in the nation in the preseason poll. But you play the season out, and now Texas is going to be playing Washington in the Sugar Bowl, and we'll see what happens with Alabama and Michigan. But the fact is, you got to play the game. You got to play out the season. Here, we got to go out. We got to earn votes. And the fact is, the reaction on the ground is fantastic. There's been enormous enthusiasm. Governor DeSantis has a message, a vision. He can serve for 8 years. He's done extraordinary things. He's delivered for the people of Florida. And there's a reason that President Trump doesn't bother to go out and debate. It's because, frankly, I'm not sure it would fare that well. And I think people should ask that question. Why won't President Trump debate Governor DeSantis?
Well, I think the Trump supporters in the audience, and there are many, many of them, would say he doesn't debate him because he doesn't have to, because look at the polls, right? So there's this sense that what's the point? People already know what Donald Trump stands for. He was already president. They're aware. But I think there's a case to be made, Congressman, that it's something of a responsibility for anyone running for office to expose themselves to those kinds of questions and to be willing to take the heat live and on stage. So, I mean, I can see both sides of it.
Yeah. So my question would be this is, what do we want to know about what President Trump would do in the next 4 years, right? Would he do again what he did with shutting down the biggest economy in the history of the world, causing all sorts of problems in our country by shutting it down, including subsequently $6 to $8 trillion of additional debt? Would he do that again? Would he give a medal to Anthony Fauci on his last day in office again? Would he again choose to regulate bump stocks, which then set the stage for the pistol brace bans for all of the gun owners out there who don't want their Second Amendment rights infringed, that's now been struck down by a circuit court? Would he do that again? Would he release people out of prison again in sort of in the name of criminal justice, where we've now got criminals on the streets? Would he do that again? Would he agree to sit down with Paul Ryan to pursue an amnesty bill instead of a border security bill first in 2018, leaving us fully exposed without new laws to check an administration like Biden again? I can keep doing this all afternoon if you want. He should have to answer those questions. I supported Trump in 2020. I'll support him if he's the nominee. He did a lot of great things.
But Congressman, if I can, and we don't endorse here on the show. It's a standing rule. We've had it from the very beginning. So I just want to try to represent all sides of the discussion as we're talking going into Iowa. All those things you said. Let's just assume for a moment that someone doesn't even want to engage and give the counterpoint on the specifics of it. Sure. What if they just turn around, they look at you and they say, well, Congressman, if all that's true, why is Donald Trump ahead, call it 40 points in the polls? Why is the Republican base so unified behind him and has been for so many months, given what you see as some vulnerabilities from his presidency that raise questions?
Well, first of all, I think there's a lot of people who haven't been able to see the answers to those questions and don't know a lot of those facts, number one. Number two, I don't believe in polls deciding the fate of our country. In 2016, if we'd listened to the polls, then we would have coronated Hillary Clinton. No? Right? I mean, And the fact is, I just was in a room full of people. I said, hey, how many of you think that we should decide the elections by polls? Do you believe in polls? Not one person raised their hand that they trust the polls. The fact is, you got to go through the process. The American people need to hear the debates. They need to understand more about Governor DeSantis, more about other candidates, more about how President Trump would handle the next 4 years. And I think that's critically important. And look, at the end of the day, like I said, I'm going to support the Republican nominee. But I believe it should be Governor DeSantis because he actually stood up to Fauci. He actually stood up to Disney. He actually stood up to the education establishment in Florida. He's actually cut the deficits and debt in Florida. They've reduced their debt by 25%. He's had net migration, jobs flowing into Florida, economic growth. He stood up for cops when in the summer of 2020 our cities were burning, frankly, under President Trump's watch. There are reasons Governor DeSantis offers us a vision for something positive, and he can serve for 8 years. So, look, I'm happy to go out and talk about it all day long. And if President Trump's the nominee, so be it. But I'm not going to bow down to, the altar of those who say, you must fall in line, young man. No, I don't. I have an obligation to go fight for the people that I represent in Congress. But as a human, as a man, as a father, as a husband, I have an obligation to go stand up for who I believe in. And I believe in Ron DeSantis.
Speaking of Congressman Chip Roy, and Congressman, I want to ask you about Governor Abbott's new powers in your home state with regard to the border and Texas now having state powers to enforce laws around illegal immigration. How do you feel about this move? Do you think it will withstand judicial scrutiny? Could this actually change things in a meaningful way?
Yeah, obviously in Congress, we've been trying to do everything we can with an administration that's totally ignoring their constitutional duty to secure the border of the United States. I've been beating this drum for the entirety of the time I've been in Congress. I've been going down to the southern border. I've been trying to present the problems. It's as bad as it's ever been because Anthony Mayorkas and President Biden refused to enforce the laws. We need Congress to use the power of the purse to check them. I hope we're going to do that. Speaker Johnson is pledging that he's going to hold the line and say, we're not going to give anything to Ukraine until we secure the border. I hope we hold to that. That's my position. But I'm just 1/435th of 1/2 of 1/3 of the federal government. So there's only so much you can do with that besides use your voice. But Governor Abbott is 100% right to step in because of the failure of the federal government. Under the Constitution, in our Republican form of government, states have the ability under our Constitution to defend our states if the federal government refuses to do so. We're under an invasion right now, and it's an invasion that is both economic, but it's also, causing death and harm to Texans. I have 6 kids who died from fentanyl poisoning in the school district I reside in just outside of Austin, Texas. Think about that. Just last year, 6 kids. We have untold damage to our kids with the fentanyl poisonings, but not to mention the damage to ranches, the damage to all of our schools, getting overloaded, our hospitals, our communities. We've spent $12.5 billion with a B. It's bigger than most states' budgets on dealing with the border in the absence of the federal government. So you're darn right, Governor Abbott is right to lean into this and start trying to exercise more state power.
Congressman Chip Roy, appreciate you being with us, sir. Good luck to you out there, and enjoy some handshakes and some good food out there in Iowa.
Just got some curds, and it's great. And you have a very Merry Christmas. Great to be on the show.
Thank you, sir. Merry Christmas to you, too.